Welcome to Prepare For Takeoff. I'm the creator and host, Cyrus. We're the podcast dedicated to amplifying Black excellence. Every week, we sit down with a proven professional or a rising entrepreneur. This week, we're sitting down with founder and CEO of EPROSPERFY, Anthony Coleman. Anthony, what's going on, fam?
Hey, brother, this, as they say, everything is everything.
Everything is everything. It's really what you make it. Obviously, with God's grace, of course, but we out here grinding. And when we met at New York Shopify, I have to shout them out. It was just a phenomenal event to meet like-minded individuals such as yourself to just share all of the different ways that people are taking full advantage of what they do on a high level through e-commerce, courtesy of Shopify. I think you built a store for somebody in Colorado.
Actually, more than one person in Colorado.
Before we get into all of that, man, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to share with our viewers and listeners how it got started for you, man. I believe you're from Missouri, correct?
First, I want to thank you for inviting me onto the show. I really do appreciate it.
Man, I wouldn't have it no other way.
I started out born and reared in St. Louis, Missouri. It's called the Show Me State. I'm not quite sure why, but I think every state has a tagline, but Missouri's is the Show Me State. And I started, must have been 1986, as a computer operator while in college. And this was at the university where I was attending. And I liked computers so much, I decided, okay, well, I want to go further instead of just in the computer room, making sure that people got their printouts and that sort of thing. I wanted to learn programming. So I started learning programming. I took programming courses. I was already in a computer science major with a minor in business, but I decided, forget that business stuff. I'm going all out computer programming. So I took as many computer programming courses as I could. Mind you, by that time, regular people did not have computers. IBM had recently, a few years earlier, came out with their PC, but most people could not afford them. So that was really, to have a computer, you were fairly rich. So mostly it was businesses and institutions that had personal computers. But I learned computer programming and I got a job, must have been about 1989, as a computer programmer for a tech company. And I stayed there for about a couple of years. Then I went to Southwestern Bell, which is now SBC. And my whole entire career has been in IT, mostly computer programming. There were a couple of years, maybe about 7 years, that I thought, I'm getting bored with it. I've done everything I wanted to do. I'm going to go into software requirements management, which is just going to users and other stakeholders, people who have a vested interest in the computer system, and finding out what it is that the system needs to do and translating that into a set of what they call requirements, which the programmers and testers can use. And there's a whole methodology in creating what they call software requirements. But basically, it's like this. If you're talking Microsoft Word, the system shall have the capability to cut and paste, or to cut. And so that's something that's testable, verifiable, and that the developers can understand. I did that for about 7 years. Then I said, I'm going back into IT. I'm going back into computer programming. And after a while, my skills were in COBOL, which is what they call third generation computer programming language. Now we're up into the early to mid 90s, where the fourth generation computer programming languages like Java came out. And but I didn't get on the bandwagon because COBOL was my bread and butter. I wasn't going to abandon my bread and butter.
What type of things did these programs drive that our viewers and listeners can relate to and identify?
Well, first of all of the computer programming languages have their strengths and weaknesses. COBOL was to handle large volumes of files. Like, you pay your utility bills. They had to bill you every month or every week or whatever. They not only billed you, but they billed millions of other people at the same time. Well, those require large large files and many different transactions at one, and you had to be able to process those within a certain amount of time. COBOL was king when it came to that. And by the way, a woman actually invented the programming.
Get out of here. When was it invented?
World War II. Yeah.
That long ago?
Yeah, COBOL. And COBOL is still being used now on large mainframe computers. In fact, I still get calls and emails about doing programming in COBOL. In terms of creating computer programmers, the methodology required people, large amounts of people, to write large programs, and that bogged down the whole process. People could not pivot very quickly. They couldn't respond to business or technology issues very, very quickly. So IT think tanks started to look for different ways to cut down on the time it takes to deliver something that was usable and people can pivot and respond to changing conditions of business. And so they came up what they call the fourth generation. Now, what also was interesting was that at the same time, artificial intelligence was being used. So they took a number of concepts from artificial intelligence and they put it into these new programming languages called the fourth generation computer programming language. Java was one. And they called it, in particular, object-oriented programming or object-oriented programming languages.
And AI was used way back then. And in what capacity was AI used?
The same things that you have now in AI, they had it then. For instance, people can take a concept or a thing that exists physically and they can model it. For instance, we are people. We can take the characteristics of people and put it in something that they call an object, and they call that object people.
Now, is that similar to robotics? Like, I'm going to mirror you in the form of something else and make it do whatever it is you do, and then I'm going to add components to it to make it even look like you.
Well, robotics was also a category under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. And we know robotics have been around for at least 20 or 30 years now because many large car manufacturers or machine manufacturers have been using robots for a very, very long time. One of the reasons that we can all get our products from Amazon the same day or the next day is because they're not employing a whole lot of people. The heavy lifting, literally and figuratively, is being done by robots. So going back to the differences between the various programming languages, there are literally thousands out there and more being created every day. All of them have their strengths and all of them have weaknesses. Now, Java came on the scene in the early 90s, and it was created to resolve some of these issues that the third generation programming languages could not. People could make computer programs or systems. They can design them more quickly, more efficiently. You can change them by utilizing or using code that was already created. I mean, it just took the world by storm. But that was Java. Then someone came out with JavaScript.
Right.
It was a totally different programming language, but they wanted to piggyback or capitalize off the word Java. And so they call it JavaScript.
I remember that.
JavaScript now is huge and it is used to power most, if not all, websites. All around the world now. I've not even scratched the surface when it comes to computer programming languages and languages that power the World Wide Web today. But that's where we are. And even Microsoft came out with something that is like JavaScript that they call TypeScript. So I mean, there are programming languages being created every day. Name value pairs. Basically what it is that you put together the name of something and its value. The name of, let's just say, we had something called animal and we had an object named animal. Now we want to reference a cat. So animal is the name.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is the value in this particular case? Cat. So it used to be that these two pieces of information were in two different parts in a computer programming language, like in COBOL. These would actually be two disparate pieces of information. In object-oriented programming languages or in AI, which artificial intelligence, which it came from, was that particular part of object-oriented programming languages. It came directly from artificial intelligence research. They put those two together and it made something very, very powerful. Now, if you look at some of the ancient concepts in the world, spiritual, architectural, mathematical, they did the same thing. They just didn't call it artificial intelligence. They didn't call it object-oriented programming. They didn't call it by it. But the concept is the same.
That's deep, man.
Very much the same.
So now, once you had all of this knowledge that you accumulated through work experience, education, at some point you moved to the New York metropolitan area. So what prompted that move and what was that transition like for you?
Over my career, I was a contract computer programmer or IT professional for many, many years. After that first job as a computer programmer, I went into contracting. Basically, I was paid by company A to go to its clients and write computer programs or solve problems, for company A's clients. And so that took me a number of different places. I worked in New York for some time. I worked in Chicago, Indianapolis, a few other places. But I went from St. Louis to Washington, D.C., working on a project. And I stayed in D.C. for about 14 years prior to moving to New York.
Okay.
And so what brought me to New York again was more, opportunities. Remember, I told you that I did not want to change over from COBOL to some of the newer programming technologies. Well, that came back to bite. The world had moved to it, but my skills were outdated. So I could not get a job.
Man. You know what they say, Anthony, it's the adapter become extinct.
Yeah. And so I struggled with that for a number of years. And that is what brought me to where I am today. I wanted to get something in the online or the internet field that would allow me to work anywhere on the planet because, I still wanted to travel. And I knew it was going to be online. And I was looking for something, didn't quite know what it would be because I did not know of all the options out there. There's many different types of career options under the umbrella of the internet. Okay, but I was on YouTube one day and I just stumbled across an ad for Shopify development. And until that time, I never even heard of Shopify. But the guy was saying that e-commerce was huge. And this would have been 2021, right? I think we were probably halfway through the pandemic. So I think at that time, Amazon was making billions a day or maybe an hour or something like that. And I said, okay, well, that sounds like something I want to be in. And I listened very, very closely and I said, yeah, this is what I need. This is exactly what I need. And I spent the next 5 or 6 months, I think it was closer to 5, learning Shopify, how to use their templating language. Technically, it's not a programming language, but it has programming language concepts. But many people do refer to it as language, but technically, it's not a language. I learned not only it's called Shopify Liquid, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Now, those last three, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, most if not all, websites utilize at least two of those, if not all.
Okay. Yeah, I know, especially HTML. I know that.
HTML creates the structure. JavaScript makes it look styles it or makes it look pretty, and JavaScript handles the heavy lifting and allows people to interact with the website. It used to be people just threw up a website and it pretty much acted as a bulletin, not a bulletin board, but a brochure.
Right.
There was hardly any interactivity. But when JavaScript came on the scene and people started to utilize it more, they saw how websites can be transformed and become much more dynamic. So that's the role of JavaScript or other scripting languages that are like it. And so I learned those at the same time or doing the same course. All of it was, they all interact to create a Shopify store. And I guess I should back up to say Shopify is a e-commerce platform that allows people to create a website that is dedicated or created for selling your products and services online. Think of Amazon. Amazon it was the first, and it's probably the biggest e-commerce platform right now on the planet. But Shopify wanted to create something for individuals or people that don't have $1 million or a couple $1 million to create an e-commerce store. So anyone at any size business can get a Shopify store created. And so and one of the strengths of it is people can get a store up fairly quickly, and it's fairly easy and intuitive to understand. The problem here is that what I see more often is that when people try to create their own store and they are not developers, website developers or designers, you don't know what you don't know. So you can
Right.
create a store, but having it sell and be financially successful is another thing. Shopify is not the only one. All of them do this. They tell people that they can create a website or an e-commerce store in a matter of hours and be selling. Technically, they are right. You can create a store within a matter of hours. That store getting traffic, converting that traffic to whatever you want your visitors to do vis-a-vis most people want to make the sale. Some pages are just built to get an email address, or they call that conversion. Whatever it is that you want people to do, that is really different from building a store.
Right.
Okay. So many developers don't know design. Many designers don't know development. Many developers and designers, they don't know conversion rate optimization. Okay.
Right.
So you do need people that have these disparate expertise.
People like you.
Expertise. Well, like me, however, one person cannot be equally as expert in all things. I've
Okay.
studied. I'm a Shopify developer mostly. I've studied web design. I've studied conversion rate optimization. My skills in website design and conversion rate optimization is not where my skills are in Shopify development. Because remember, I came from a programming background, and the there's a difference between design and development. Design is pretty much what an architect does. They lay things out. They say that, this beam needs to be right here to withhold this weight of a ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
They don't come and create the beam. They don't put the beam up. They lay out the whole entire building. A developer is more like a construction worker. They take the designs and say this beam needs to be right there, and now we're going to pour the concrete or put together the materials or get the materials, and we're going to hoist it up and get it exactly where it's supposed to be. That's a developer.
Okay.
So two different skill sets, two entirely different skill sets.
Thinking about starting your own business? Make it real with Shopify. the all-in-one platform trusted by millions to sell online and in person, whether it's merch, art, or digital goods. Shopify gives you the tools to build, grow, and succeed. And here's the best part. When you sign up using the affiliate link in our show notes, you're supporting Prepare for Takeoff and starting your business off right. Click the link and start your free trial today. I'm thinking of our viewers and listeners, questions they may be having in their minds as you're breaking down all of what it is to build a Shopify store and all of the different components that you need to be mindful of. So if they were to say, I want to have my own Shopify store, what would that process consist of?
Me personally, with EPROSPERFY is an agency.
Okay.
So I put together some professionals that will do those things in which I know just enough to keep them on track. For instance, I mentioned that, I've studied web design. I have a dedicated web designer on my team.
Okay.
I've studied branding for stores. I can create things like brochures and business cards and logos, but that's not my expertise. So I give it to the graphics designer. I say, we need this for the Shopify store. And so I take that and give it to the graphic designer. I say, we need the design for the Shopify stores. It should have these. You need to figure out the colors. We need to figure out the fonts that's going to work well with the brand that they got here, the products, how they want to communicate the messaging to the target audience, all that stuff. And I also have another Shopify developer on my team, and we will split the Shopify development tasks.
Okay.
I have 2 marketing people. I have one that just deals with problems with Google. Google is huge. So I have a whole team of professionals that have a particular area of expertise. And we all come together. I divvy up the work to get the Shopify store built, maintained, and selling and purring like a kitten.
I knew that, but I didn't want to assume that our viewers and listeners knew that. I know we're interviewing you, but you are the founder and CEO of your own company, and the company is not just a one-man operation. You have a team of individuals who have those areas of expertise, as I do myself. And a lot of people don't understand that it takes a team. It takes a communal effort, if you will, to make good on any task that is sizable in nature. So I want to just make sure that our viewers and listeners understand and realize that you do have a team and you have these individuals. Your area of expertise is what it is. Many CEOs, they have an understanding of all of the things that their shop does, but that may not necessarily be their area of expertise. So you bring in those experts that can help make certain that all of those things go smoothly. But in the same regard, if you no different if you have a bakery and the person that's supposed to bake the donuts doesn't come in, then you have to understand how these donuts are made. So I wanted to make certain that that was something that our viewers and listeners more than understood. And then just speaking as a community, as you are the embodiment of Black excellence, and that's what we're all about, amplifying Black excellence. We have to understand and bring to the forefront, I feel, individuals such as yourself, so people understand that there's people in the community are doing great things. And more importantly, to stress the fact that we're stronger together than we are separate and apart from one another.
Definitely.
And when you talk about our ancestry, whether you're talking about back in the ancient times, people of color ran the world. We had a completely different mindset. And I know we were talking about that. And I would love for you to share that with our viewers and listeners, the importance of embracing what it is to think from a communal level and how it served us well in ancient times and how it can serve us well present day.
Yeah. Dr. John Henry Clark was one of our huge our historians. I don't like using the word historian because his implies someone else's narrative about the world. Dr. John Henry Clark, born and reared, I think he was in Alabama or in Georgia. And he was one of our biggest and brightest Pan-African our historians. He basically says that history is a clock that tells you your political time of day. And it's also a compass that tells you where you need to go. and points the way. And in fact, you can find many of his videos on YouTube. Just look up Dr. John Henry Clark. You'll find him. And he was one of the advisors to Malcolm X. Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakinen, who was actually born in Ethiopia and studied in Brazil and the Virgin Islands, he became one of our greatest Egyptologists. And his whole life was dedicated to the people of African descent in the Nile Valley and what they did to create the civilizations, not only what they call, well, the indigenous name is Kemet, the Greeks call it Egypt, but that whole stretch of the Nile going all the way to Southern Africa. Actually, it starts in the south and goes to the north. The Nile is the only river in the world that flows from the south to the north.
To the north.
Okay. But at that time, before we started to be invaded, the world looked very different. The whole entire thrust of the planet was not the accumulation of things. Dr. Ben teaches, look at it this way. If you're in a society where all of your needs are met, Africa's abundant. It is really abundant. We got the sunlight, we got the food, we got everything you need. Everything a people
Math,
need to
science,
that
natural minerals and resources, everything.
That is why we were able to create what we did. And just look at people of African descent here in the United States. Even within a decade of the ending of chattel slavery in this country, we were able to do so much. Just think of what a people would have been able to do when they weren't oppressed. So that is where we were for thousands of years. And we go back. I'm reading a book now by Dr. Charles Finch. It's called 10,000 Years of Nile Valley Civilization. And that's just what we're learning now is just the artifacts, buildings, scripts that survive. Think about all the other civilizations that came before that. They even think that the Sphinx, what they call the Sphinx, is older than 10,000 years old.
Mm.
There's lots of evidence that shows that it's older than 10,000 years. Okay, I've seen something called the Shango bone that had mathematical calculations on it, and it goes back 25,000 years, found right there in the Congo. You know, so there is the world today, as I started out, it looks very, very different today than it was yesterday. So to utilize what we know of the world and what we think of the world right now is almost comparing apples and oranges when we think about the world prior to, let's say, the Greeks. We don't get very much information about the world prior to the Greeks, but the world did exist. There was so much going on. The first pyramid was built almost 2,000 years before the Greeks came on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 2,000 years.
If we were in present times, and basically it was built during the years of Christ.
I said 2,000 years BC, so that really makes it about 4,000 years, 5,000.
You're saying it was that long ago that the pyramids was erected before the Greeks even came on the scene. That's the parallel I wanted to drive to our viewers and listeners. The length of time that is when you're talking to, because when you think of 2,000 years, you have to kind of put it in perspective. What does 2,000 years really mean? We're talking about back to biblical times. That was 2,000 years ago. Well, from present day.
Yep. But I want to point something out. The story of Christ, there's technically very historical proof, artifacts and that sort of thing. Not even any stories written about this person that they call Jesus Christ, which is, for instance, the letter J wasn't always in the English language. So if there was someone called Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, the name couldn't have started with a J. because it didn't exist. That J did not exist, at least in English, and it didn't
Okay.
exist in Hebrew. And then the name, what we call Christ, is supposed to be something called Christus, which means the anointed. So the name, so that person's, that figure's name, last name or surname was not Christ. So I mean, my point is that there's a whole lot of things that we are taught from day one, from the womb to the tomb, that that aren't necessarily true. Now, people can believe what they want, but backing things up with what they call proof and what they call science and archaeology and that sort of thing is something else. Now, even what they call the pyramids, and this is a lot of information I've gotten from Anthony Browder, who lives in Washington, D.C. And I went over to his place and I took some of his tours and I purchased a lot of his books. I would really encourage people to read his books or even watch his videos on YouTube.
And what's his name one more time?
Anthony Browder.
How do you spell that?
Browder. Anthony Browder. He wrote a number of books, one called The Browder Files 1, Browder Files 2, Now Valley Contribution to Civilization, and a few other books. And he's lectured all around the world. He was a student of Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, and just really, really, the brother is, you should really try to get him on the show. His information,
I love
he
to
can
have
back
him on.
everything. He can back everything up with documentation, and he does so in the bibliography of his books. Really, really great. But anyway, I think we're the living proof that there is something that is much deeper about people of African descent. Even with all the problems that are happening on the African continent right now, we have 3 excellent leaders who are just blazing the world right now. And they are doing some incredible things for African people. I'm looking for ways in which I can get over there and help with some of the technology centers. Kenya is a big technology center right now. I forget there's another one on
It's
the
Rwanda big? I don't know why or was it Uganda? I know I could be getting it wrong. I could be wrong. I don't know why Uganda or Rwanda came to mind.
there's technology centers all over. Uganda has quite a few things. It has some electrical cars. I just saw a couple months ago some brothers, genius guy. He created a rocket that went up into space, and he created with 10 cans.
What? Where was this at?
I think this was in Uganda. Yeah. I mean, people of African descent are used to creating something out of nothing.
Right.
When you think about what we did after slavery, we basically created something out of nothing with hundreds of banks, credit unions, schools, many things going on.
Mm-hmm.
But that really is a part of the global African experience. And
Right.
you can see the same thing in Jamaica, Trinidad, Cuba, Brazil, all of the places. In fact, I don't know of any other places that we were taken to in the transatlantic slave trade, or even during the Arab slave trade in the Indian Ocean and through what they call the so-called Middle East, that we weren't just being creative like we are now.
We have to figure out ways that we can get information to people of color, showcasing people such as yourself to say, listen, there are a multitude of different ways that you can find yourself in equal footing. And I really feel technology is one of those places. And then getting back to the whole Shopify thing and how you're helping people build these stores, because I want to be able to highlight that and all of the different things that you've been able to do to help people that may not necessarily have that tech expertise, but they want to build a presence on the internet. They want to find a way to monetize. For example, I have a sister. She's an esthetician.
Okay.
And I tell her all the time, Anthony, you should be selling some kind of product. You should be offering some kind of expertise. You can do but so many facials in person. She's already booked probably for the next 2 or 3 months. And then when I was talking to her about you in particular, I said, I met a gentleman, he builds stores, he's doing his thing, and he's using Shopify as his platform to help people build these e-commerce centers, if you will, on the Shopify platform. How could someone like her or someone else that maybe is an entrepreneur in whatever industry, how could they take advantage of your agency and all of what it is you can provide for them to build those stores from soup to nut?
Well, estheticians, they provide a service, right?
Correct.
Okay. So with Shopify, everything that one can sell is considered a product, even a service. If you go to my agency's website, we don't sell products per se. They're not digital. There's nothing that is physical. We sell our services. So she can certainly sell her services to the extent that she can. She may want to have online classes, either live or digital. She can sell those. She can sell memberships to other estheticians who are just getting started and want to know how to do this sort of thing or how to get this particular type of expertise or experience. In addition to that, I always recommend, to some extent, try to come up with some product per se to sell, whether or not that's going to be digital and or a physical product. She probably uses chemicals and she should be getting those chemicals at some sort of wholesale pricing, repackaging them and selling them at retail. She could be
Right.
doing that. All right. In addition to her services, as well as selling to other estheticians. Also, she could be leveraging some of the parts of Shopify or any other type of e-commerce for that matter. I'm partial to Shopify because if people, I'm sure that she has to give people appointments. Their Shopify store. There are many apps on the Shopify, what they call ecosystem that she can get. Just like you download apps for your smartphone, you can download apps for your Shopify store so that people can come to your store and make an appointment for the service. She can get a deposit, 20, 10, 30, 40%, are paid in full, so that people who make a deposit are less likely to bail at the last minute and leave you holding the bag, in terms of, now I don't have I have to wait an hour or whatever time their appointment would be before the next appointment. There are huge advantages to and multiple ways in which one can leverage Shopify in order to be more profitable, to be more efficient and more effective, and save you time as the entrepreneur. But the issue is that what I've come across, I've known people that say, well, I don't want to use this level of automation because of such and such and such and such. And that's fine. But me personally, I would want to use as much automation as possible because I want to save as much time as possible. If you're doing things, if you're spending hours just trying to coordinate schedules, as well as calling people to make sure they're going to come to their appointment, you could get an app that does all that for you and save yourself hours that you can be putting towards something that is money generating.
This episode of Prepare for Takeoff is brought to you in part by Riverside, the platform that I trust to record studio quality podcasts right from my laptop. With Riverside, I get crystal clear audio and 4K video. Plus, it's super easy to use. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, Riverside helps your podcast sound amazing. Try it out for yourself. Click the affiliate link in our show notes and start recording like a pro with Riverside. Anthony, I wanted to give you the opportunity to leave our viewers and listeners with 3 things that you feel will help them prepare for takeoff.
Well, again, I want to First of all, thank you for having me on the show. What I think the three things that people can do is to figure out how to build a business or earn or make a living doing something that you love to do. Okay. And I'm sure that your audience has heard that a number of times, but it's really true. No one becomes successful just like that. And there's going to be times in which things aren't going to be going your way. And it is at those valleys, when you're in those valleys, doing something that you love to do makes it less like work, and it will get you to the peaks, assuming that you do not give up. Another thing is you have to really know your stuff. You don't have to know absolutely everything. In fact, you shouldn't know everything. It's probably impossible to know everything, but you need to be able to know where to get answers and when to ask for help. But you do need to know your stuff. You need to know more than the person who you are performing the service or selling the product to, much more, because you need to be able to provide deep consultations for this person or this company. And finally, you have to be able to when the time comes. If plan A isn't working, you need to pivot to plan B. If plan B isn't working, pivot to plan C. Right now, I am working on AI automation for Shopify stores. I am studying AI automation for Shopify stores and how to free up store owners from these mundane tasks that they have to do all the time, day in, day out, all the manual labor that they have to do day in and day out. So I'm gaining the skills in order to write software, AI-based software to automate these processes.
Man,
So I'm not just I'm just not content with where I am in terms of Shopify development and writing Shopify code.
I'm sure that our viewers and listeners, they're going to want to continue to tap in. How can they find you? Whether that's on LinkedIn, can you share your website, or what's the best way to contact you?
The best way to contact me is through my website. It's eprosperfy.com. E as in Albert. Think of the word prosper, because that's what it is. PROSPER, and then FY. So eprosperfy.com. You can find me on all the relevant social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I even have a something on X. I don't do very much with it, but I'm on it, and even Pinterest. But you can find me on mostly on Facebook, LinkedIn, and well, I guess those are the two main ones that I utilize. But I do have other accounts on those other channels. But yeah, the most direct route is my Shopify agency's website.
I was about to say Anthony Coleman. That's a pretty common name. So if they put that into Facebook, should they associate that with your company as well, or?
Yeah. In fact, I went to school with two other Anthony Colemans. So when one of them did something, I got called down to the principal office.
Right. So we're gonna figure out it was one of y'all. One of y'all did something, right?
Yeah, it was one of you all.
Absolutely, man. Well, Anthony, thanks for spending so much time with us. Much continued success. We'll be cheering you along your journey. And we have to figure out a way we can pool our resources. Success should be a shared experience. And I'm always looking for ways to collaborate with brothers such as yourself. So we have to figure out what we can do to not only do great business, but to inspire other people to do the same in their circle.
I think that's something that we're seeing right now taking place on the African continent, and I couldn't be more thrilled with what's going on in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. They are the living examples of what are leaders not only on the African continent, but every place where we are the predominant group of people, whether or not that's in the Caribbean, Central America, South America, and even in the Pacific Islands, Fiji, Melanesia, all those different islands, Papua New Guinea, all of those different places. Those are the type of leaders that we need throughout the world so that we can reclaim the greatness of people of African descent. And
Right.
when even if you look at the 60s and 70s, and I'm a child of the teenager of the 80s. So, and, I grew up listening to here in St. Louis, we had speeches by Malcolm X on the radio. We were listening to The Last Poets, Gil Scott-Heron, speeches by Marcus Garvey. I mean, a lot of stuff was going on. We have to be able to look back at the history of what people did prior to the invasions of African people.
Mm-hmm.
If I could just recommend one book, it would be Destruction of Black Civilization by Dr. Chancellor Williams. The subtitle is Great History of a Race, 4000 BC to 2000 AD. That's a classic book. And I read it in college and I'll never forget it. It takes you through a lot of stuff. Just how great many of the things that we did. We had Wakanda prior to the movie Black Panther.
Right.
We actually had, it wasn't called Wakanda.
We had
That is just somebody's a made up name and a made up place.
right.
But
Artistic expression of what was reality at one point in time.
right. I mean, and we did have something that's called technology. We could call it technology. We had it all. Africa has in fact, every place that we live, where we are the majority, we have everything that we need. The only thing that's stopping us is you got a group of people who know who we are. They read history. They keep the history books. So they know who we are. So the biggest tool that they have, and Stephen Biko said that, the greatest weapon in the mind of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. As long as they can keep us foolish and not knowing who and what we are, who and what we truly are, then we will continue to be in the condition that we're in now.
I want to unlock people's potential by way of pouring into them mentally, emotionally. And I think, one of the things that I've come to realize is you have to meet people where they are more so than where you may want them to be. Our brothers and sisters, they may not be in the library. Our brothers and sisters, they're heavily fixated on their phones. So they can consume content, whether that's on YouTube, Spotify, all of the different platforms that you will find Prepare for Takeoff. What we want to do is we want to pour into people and make that information as digestible as possible so we can just spark that thing inside them to say, you know what, why can't I do this? What's stopping me? The only person that's in my way is a person in the mirror. And if I watch Anthony Coleman rise to the heights of which from Missouri, and myself rising from West Virginia, and other people from some of the under-resourced communities in some of these inner cities throughout America, people believe what you show them, not what you tell them. And I want to be able to be the example of that. I wanted to thank our viewers and listeners, whether you're watching us on Spotify or YouTube, whether you're listening to us on Audible, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeart, or Pandora. We're going to continue to bring you conversations just like these every Wednesday. And all of these conversations, just like this one, will help you prepare for takeoff. Anthony, thanks for joining us.
All right, brother. Thank you very much, Terry. I appreciate it.